We will give the British people a referendum lock to which only they should hold the key, a commitment very similar to that exists in Ireland. This is a major constitutional development, but I believe it's now the only way to reassure the British people that powers cannot be given away without their explicit approval in a referendum. And this is important because, after all, it is not politicians' power to give away. The power belongs to the people.
Okay, it's not the politicians' power to give away. This in itself demonstrates the entire lie of what Cameron is trying to sell us here. So if we were to ask the question of Mr. Cameron regarding exactly what he bases this statement upon, what would be his answer? We must simply ask, whose power is it? But he answers this question directly by saying the power lies with the people. The people, having elected a UK government and its personnel, are representatives to govern the UK only. They were never elected to pass their powers to anyone else. This treaty called Lisbon could just as well have been a treaty called Beijing. Think about it. Now compare what you have just heard with the following.
Take the sovereignty of our laws. Because we have no written constitution, unlike many other European countries, we have no explicit legal guarantee that the last word on our laws stays in Britain.
Okay, now we have Cameron talking about the sovereignty of our laws and the suggestion that we have no written constitution. This idea of our having no constitution is an immense deception which is imparted to the public by all three major parties. However, that's for later discussion. For now, let's just ask a very simple question here. If we have no constitution and no sovereignty of law in this country, then from where does he draw his previous statement that the power lies with the people? i.e., which legal or lawful statute? He makes a statement of seeming fact, so from where does that fact originate, when he then goes on to seemingly contradict it by stating there is no constitution? Yet I have heard no one in our media raise an issue with such contradictions. Well, no surprise there, right? Do you ever ask yourself the question, what exactly is an unwritten constitution? Here Cameron says, because we have no written constitution. And then in the following excerpt, you will quite clearly hear him state, this is a major constitutional development. Major contradiction. You cannot have a constitutional development without there first being a constitution. You see, within the entirety of this speech he made, there are so many issues, contradictions inherent within it, yet they have gone whoosh straight over people's heads because it's all part of a long-winded, dreary political spin, once more of a man in opposition trying to sell a lie to get you to vote for him. Blair did the same. It doesn't matter which side of that phony fence they are on, because they all answer to the same owners. Blair and Brown and Cameron, etc., etc., are all just existing or wannabe directors of the company titled UK plc, and they are simply submitting business cases to the real controllers, the market. Or at least for the purposes of this vid, we shall call it the market. But you can take it from me, that market is made up of specific people and certainly is no free market. What is the UK? Is it a republic like America? No, it's known as a constitutional monarchy. The fundamentals of the makeup of a country, its borders, its laws, its entire form of government is constituted by a constitution. When people say we have no constitution, and when our very own Prime Minister says it, I worry. I wonder how much fluoride is in his water. Let me try to explain some fundamentals which our government wishes all to be ignorant of, thereby allowing them to talk absolute utter nonsense to our population with total impunity. We have a constitutional monarch. Her name is Elizabeth. As an aside, I'd like to make clear there is no such thing as the Queen of the United Kingdom. There are two monarchies. One is the Queen of England and Wales, and one is the Queen of Scotland. They are two separate offices, but just happen to be held by one and the same person. This has been the case since William and Mary first took office, having been given the throne by the people of Scotland, England and Wales, based upon a written set of conditions, for which they and the present incumbent had to agree and swear a coronation oath to. The conditions were primarily set out in two major documents: the Declaration of Rights, which then became the Bill of Rights, something else our government of both parties wish us to be ignorant of, and the Act of Settlement. Now, why would our successive governments since the Heath government of 1972 wish to suppress all public interest in such old, out-of-date documents? Well, there is very, very good reason for this. Between these two documents, they incorporate the oldest laws of the land, and they make it very clear that not only our government, but also our present monarch have committed treason upon the people of the United Kingdom. You may question that word treason when it has always been applied to any acts against the monarchy. You may even suggest I am speaking in treasonous terms myself here, but you'd be mistaken. Why? Because as you've just heard, Mr. Cameron has stated absolutely factually that the power lies with the people. He means our entire British sovereignty lies with the people of this country. How can that be if the ultimate holder of power and sovereignty is the monarch? Well, the issue is that the monarch is not the ultimate power. The monarch's coronation oath is not an oath which the monarch swears to him or herself. It is an oath solemnly taken and sworn to the people, otherwise they would not be crowned. Now, the monarch has, as a complement of ex and existing politicians, what is called a Privy Council. This Privy Council also has an oath, which is to the monarch. It includes the following: "You will to your uttermost bear faith and allegiance unto the Queen's Majesty, and will assist and defend all jurisdictions, preeminences, and authorities granted to Her Majesty and annexed to the Crown by Acts of Parliament or otherwise, against all foreign princes, persons, prelates, states, or potentates, and generally in all things you do as a faithful and true servant ought to do to Her Majesty, so help you God." Now, you may be interested in the following letter from Peter Mandelson, which expressly states, when asked the meaning and the importance of such an oath, that it is very definitely taken by the Privy Councillors as a solemn and binding oath. Of course, he could not possibly respond otherwise. What Peter, however, is saying here is the following: "So, we ignored it, and we've sold out to a foreign state, but the treaties leading up to it were all signed off by the monarch. What do you propose doing about it?" What he doesn't appreciate, or more properly wish to acknowledge, is that by the government taking all the steps it has since 1972, and the present monarch effectively underwriting them, he and all parliamentarians, plus the monarch, have broken their oaths to the people, because the parliamentary oath and Privy Council oath are to a head of state who takes an oath to the British people, and so what we have is an unlawful domino effect. So you may well be a monarchist, but then ask yourself a simple question: why? Someone in your family probably fought and died for this country 60 plus years ago. For what exactly? Well, the idea was to fight and die for Britain, its laws, and its sovereignty. Unfortunately for them, they didn't recognize that they were fighting and dying for an entirely different agenda, and precisely the same goes for those who are presently fighting and dying in illegal wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and perhaps soon Iran. Mr. Cameron, re your inability to have the referendum. You omit mention of parliamentary sovereignty, which states that previous parliaments may not bind successive ones. Did you forget this? I'll leave you with these words. For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents, such as my encounter with Castro, to attack the Rockefeller family for the inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty. And I'm proud of it.